I have just finished, for the very first time in my entire life, Super Mario 64. Now, I know a lot of you might be shocked at hearing that, but I never grew up with the Nintendo games as much as the other kids. I played a couple Kirby games on the Game Boy Advance, one Mario game on the Game Boy Advance, and that was the extent of my knowledge. And I think a Kirby game on the DS. I never played Mario games, really. So, Super Mario 64 was my first dip into the pond of Mario games. And I was like, I want to play those, but there's so many good current 3D games out there. I don't want to get ruined by playing these new fancy ones before going back to the original one. And plus, this one has a lot of love for it. There's a lot of nostalgia for it, but I have absolutely no nostalgia. Although I was the age of a child that when it came out, it would have been for me. So it is interesting that I could have had this in my childhood and then I just never played it. Now being an adult and playing it, so what do I think of it? First off, I'm not going to say anything about the graphics. Obviously, it's a game that is of its time. I'm not going to rag on what it looks like, because obviously it's not going to look anything as good as what it looks like nowadays for games. Although I will say that I think the visuals are very charming. I love that look of the older generation games. So I can look at it and find it aesthetically pleasing because it reminds me of my childhood a lot with other games. For the visuals, I would say that they hold up pretty well in terms of the time that they came out and the time that it is now. And someone who grew up around that time, seeing those type of visuals, they hold up. I think they held up very well. Probably the most controversial thing that I will say in this video is the gameplay. Super Mario 64's gameplay, in my opinion, from someone who's never played it before, has no nostalgia tied to it whatsoever. I find it very janky. Now, that's to be expected. It was the original, very first 3D platformer that was popularized, really. I'm sure there might have been one other, but generally people regard Super Mario 64 as being like the original. It was the one that popularized it, and then afterwards, like a lot of other 3D platformers came out, especially Sony PlayStation did them a lot. You know, Sly Cooper, Spyro, Jak and Daxter, all those, Ratchet and Clank. So I believe Super Mario 64 is a fun platformer. Although I had difficulty, there was a couple levels, one in particular that drove me absolutely nuts. Because from what I've noticed playing it, I don't know if this was on the original 64 console, because I played it on the Switch version. In the Switch version, Mario slides a lot when he walks. If you walk and then stop, he continues to move even after he stops for just like a little bit. But that little bit, I mean, that could push you over the edge in some levels. And nothing is more prevalent than when you are on the snowy peaks of, I believe it was the 4th level. And oh my gosh, drove me nuts. I think I died easily upwards of 40 times. It drove me nuts. I actually rage quitted I think 2-3 times. It was ridiculous. I'm like, okay, why do I keep freaking dying? Is it because not only because it's snowy and icy, does it already have kind of the slippery effects in there, but then also this weird feature that Mario already kind of slips and slides when he walks. So coupled with that, it's just a mess. And then the way that they structured the level, there's really tiny little places for you to walk, and there's this little tiny island with a Bon Man on it. And it's just, and you have to get to them every single time you want a cannon. Oh, it drove me nuts. When I finally finished that level, I was so excited because I was like, oh, thank God I can move on. Let's talk about level design. Now, I think a lot of the levels were fun. Not obviously the ice mountain level. The other levels were really fun. I found them very engrossing, very diverse. I loved how each one had its own theme, had its own way of getting coins or stars. I like the different caps you get. I found that really fun, especially the wing cap. The wing cap was awesome. I also like traveling around Peach's castle and unlocking all the secret areas. And because it was kind of like it's not a level, but it kind of is a level, And I found that very fascinating. Obviously, in terms of story, Super Mario 64 is not the best in terms of storytelling. It's kind of the most simple story. Peach invites Mario to the castle, and it's a trap, and Bowser's captured her, and now you gotta go save her from Bowser's clutches. Pretty simple story. So I'm not gonna rag it on that. I'm not gonna give it points off or on for the story, because it's just the normal Mario story, which makes sense because, again, as I said, this was the first outing of a 3D platformer for Mario and popularized it. So they had to put a lot of work into it. So they didn't really have time to put much to the story. So I can understand that. Lastly, what I want to say is, would I revisit this game? I don't know, maybe. Super Mario 64, I would say, would probably be with no nostalgia tied to it, obviously. I understand people have nostalgia tied to it, and that probably makes it like an 8 to 9 out of 10. Just on gameplay alone and story alone, I would knock it to a 5 out of 10. But the music, though, hits and slaps so hard, I would bump it up to a 6.5, because the Piranha Plant Lullaby, even the file select screen had a freaking awesome song to it. So I would definitely say about a 6.5 out of 10. Definitely things to improve. The camera, my guy. The camera is so janky. If you want to turn it, you can't I know you're well, duh, obviously. But you can't turn it fluidly. You have to keep hitting it in one direction constantly on the thumbstick before it moves in that oh God, it drove me nuts. So I'm excited. After this, I'm planning to play Mario Sunshine, because I've never played Mario, any of the other ones, Sunshine Galaxy, Odyssey, 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Obviously, Wonder just came out. The new Super Mario RPG also released. I never played the Paper Mario games, Paper Mario Origami King. I know they're doing a release of a remastered, almost kind of a remake of the Thousand Year Door of Paper Mario. So I'll probably end up playing that as well. I've never played any of these games. As I said, a lot of the big mainstream Nintendo games, I've never played them. So I'd love to dive myself into this world and kind of give you my objective thoughts from someone who doesn't have any nostalgia tied to this stuff. I do have a little nostalgia tied to like 5 games on handheld from Nintendo, but not the mainline games. So I'm really excited to get myself into the world of Mario. And obviously, I know many of you might have watched my Zelda video, although I highly doubt you've made it this far. Just from my analytics I've seen. But I am planning on playing the Zelda games as well. But right now, I kind of played Zelda for 2 months, and I was kind of getting tired, honestly, of Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm like, okay, I kind of want to change the pace. So I'm like, let me play Super Mario 64, and it was a breath of fresh air, let me tell you that, in terms of gameplay. So I really, I did have a fun time. I did have a fun time. I don't want this to sound negative. This is just a pure objective. I played it. I don't have any ties or strings to it. I watched a lot of speedrun people play it, and I found that really fun. And I enjoyed watching their playthroughs of that, so that's cool too. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.